Hello and you're welcome to our series of looking at the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. Again, my name is Robert Mugisa Abwooli. And one of the things that I love is to struggle hard and see that human rights and fundamental freedoms are promoted, protected, and realized by everyone and for everyone. I continue my series of looking at the rights as spelled out in chapter 4 of the Constitution. Specifically, today we are looking at articles after 24, and let's begin with Article 25, because in part 2 we stopped on Article 24. Article 25 talks about protection from slavery, servitude, and forced labor. Remember, Article 24 was about the right to freedom from torture, inhuman, degrading treatment, or punishment. So Article 25, Clause 1. No person shall be held in slavery or servitude. 2. No person shall be required to perform forced labor. 3. For the purposes of this article, forced labor does not include any labor required in consequence of the sentence or order of a court. Like we sometimes see the prison inmates doing some work within the prison vicinity under the watch of the warders. B. Any labor required of any person while that person is lawfully detained, which, though not required in consequence of the sentence or order of a court, is reasonably necessary in the interests of hygiene or for the maintenance of the place at which the person is detained. Like the police cells, you get some people who are in detention and they are cleaning around, just some light work around the cells to keep it clean and maintain the place healthy. 25(3)(c). Any labor required of a member of a disciplined force as part of that member's duties as such, or in the case of a person who has conscientious objections to service as a member of a naval, military, or air force, any labor which that person is required by law to perform in place of that service. D. Any labor required during any period when Uganda is at war or in case of any emergency or calamity which threatens the life and well-being of the community to the extent that the requiring of the labor is reasonably justifiable in the circumstances of any situation arising or existing during the period or as a result of the emergency or calamity for the purposes of dealing with that situation. So if war broke out, God forbid, in Uganda, and you're required to do something, we shall not call that forced labor, because you're required, the circumstance reasonably and justifiably require you to perform as thus. If it's about carrying some fatigue, carrying some items to help the military, or you can't say I'm being forced to work. It's part of helping get out of that emergency situation or calamity, and so we don't classify that as forced labor. And then lastly, forced labor shall not include any labor reasonably required as part of reasonable and normal communal or other civic obligations. So if we wake up one day and we decide to do some community work, to clean up a marketplace, and you're required to participate, you cannot claim that we have forced you to work, because Bulungi 1C is what the Baganda say, for the good of the community, communal or other civic obligations. Reasonable is the word. Okay. That's Article 25, protection from slavery, servitude, and forced labor. Article 26 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda states, 26.1, every person has a right to own property, either individually or in association with others. So please remember that Article 26 talks about the right to protection from deprivation of property. And many people just say the right to property. So you can clearly hear this, that Article 26.1 is about everybody having a right to own property, either as an individual or in association with others. As John, as James, as Robert, as Mercy, as Jennifer, as Sarah, you own property as an individual, but also as an association of, whatever women association, you have the right to have joint property. And also in marriage, people own property jointly, and that belongs to you. Nobody should take it away from you. Article 26.2, no person shall be compulsorily deprived of property or any interest in or right over property of any description except where the following conditions are satisfied. Meaning that if you're to get property from somebody, you must ensure that A, the taking of possession or acquisition is necessary for public use or in the interest of defense, public safety, public order, public morality, or public health. B, the compulsory taking of possession or acquisition of property is made under the law which makes provision for 1, prompt payment of fair and adequate compensation prior to the taking of possession or acquisition of the property, and 2, a right of access to a court of law by any person who has an interest or right over the property. So you see that it's a big discussion around property. You cannot just deprive somebody of their property. Though the same law states that there are circumstances under which property may be acquired or taken possession of by another party. But even then, there must be a law that provides for that, or there must be compensation. If you're taking away my land, you must notify me, but also adequately compensate me before you take that property. And so many issues come up around land acquisition, land possession, property possession, where people do not really do things the right way. And it's my call, therefore, that let us obey and follow the provisions of the Constitution and any other laws that touch property, so that we live harmoniously as a people that are called for God's purpose, the people who are moving forward together as a country. Article 27, right to privacy. Some people say right to privacy. Right to privacy of person, home, and other property. Okay. No person shall be subjected to A, unlawful search of the person, home, or other property of that person, or B, unlawful entry by others of the premises of that person. Article 27, clause 2 states that no person shall be subjected to interference with the privacy of that person's home, correspondence, communication, or other property. Okay. So we've looked at, let me just remind us that we began by looking at Article 20, which looked at fundamental and other human rights and freedoms. Okay? Article 21, equality and freedom from discrimination. You can look for part 1 of my series. Then we went to Article 22, protection of right to life. Article 23, protection of personal liberty. Article 24, respect for human dignity and protection from inhuman treatment. Article 25, protection from slavery, servitude, and forced labor. Article 26, protection from deprivation of property. Article 27, right to privacy of person, home, or other property. Let's end this part 3 here. And next time, in the next series, we'll be looking at Article 28 and probably complete the series on the reading of the articles. I know there are quite many under Chapter 4 that need in-depth understanding. What I do is read out so that we can capture the key elements. So what are we saying in conclusion? The rights that are guaranteed in the Constitution, but also elsewhere in the standards that we have, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, are standards that don't belong to one person, but to all of us here living. And therefore, emphasis must be put on all stakeholders, you, me, the people in authority, the rights holders, the duty bearers, are all required to respect the provisions of the Constitution, the provisions of the human rights standards, and other instruments. You cannot live life in isolation. You live life with others. But the question is, are you respecting them as they deserve? We read, yes, but we must be able to apply what we read. It doesn't help you to speak about human rights, if you do not apply the theory to the practice. Therefore, I call upon all people here living to listen, to understand, and to do what we are required to do as a country, as a nation. That's how we shall be able to move forward with the protection and respect of rights and fundamental freedoms. For God and my country, I wish you well.